Our next speaker is a fellow patriot. We talked a little bit about patriotism this morning. And he's also a fellow radio host of mine at a Patriot Radio network, namely GCN. He is the founder of NutriMedical. You can learn about that at NutriMedical.com. He has the NutriMedical show on GCN Radio. And he has been leading an epic struggle against frankenfoods, frankenbodies, chips, implants, and all that horrible stuff that they're using to torture the human body in this age of runaway technology and toxic technology. So I'll let Dr. Bill take it over from here. This is Dr. Bill Deagle.
Thanks, Kevin. Okay, we're going to adjust this for Dr. Bill height. Okay, how many people are tired? If you're not, you're already asleep. Okay. Now, I want to start off my talk. I'm going to talk about some pretty heavy things, and we've talked about a lot of heavy things. What happens to a body, an individual person, an autonomous human being, when they're exposed to this much data, even if you're in the movement, is you're going to get overwhelmed. How many people here are not overwhelmed? You're not overwhelmed? Well, you will be shortly. Okay, now here's the thing. When the body reacts, the body responds emotionally, intellectually. Emotionally, your body is going almost like, have you ever gone to a place where you're fearful, whether you're over, let's say, the Niagara Falls, or you're doing something really dangerous, like you're about to bungee jump for the first time. Well, this conference is like we're all lined up on the bridge ready to jump. Now, if you're not fearful, you don't have any common sense. But I tell people, be fearless, but not careless. Because we're dealing with a very dangerous world. There's very great probabilities of futures that are wonderful with advanced technology for energy to clear up our pollution problems. I'm an environmental doctor. Life's extension, reversal of age, wiping out disease. On the other hand, we're at this crossroads or nexus. We're looking at a history where they're trying to literally create a global matrix. Now, some people call this a conspiracy theory. And I want you, whenever you hear, if you only take one thing away from this conference, whenever you hear the words conspiracy, the next word that pops into your head, this is from Dr. Bill, is conspiracy reality. This is not a theory, okay? And you'll see information today, you saw information yesterday. All of the speakers here, none of us are playing ego games, okay? What we're doing is very dangerous, but we're staring down the barrel of the end of human history if we don't stop it. We're also staring down the barrel of an adventurous future where we will spread out across the stars, extending human lifespan, wipe out the pollution, and create a peaceful world where it's fit for human beings and other life forms to live in peace and harmony with their environment. But it's our choice. The primary attack of the New World Order is not Afghanistan, Iraq, or oil. It's you. It's your consciousness. It's your autonomy. If you look at what Connie Fogel said, an amazing woman who's led the Canadian Action Party, and she said that what they're trying to do is take away 800 years, all the way from, the Magna Carta in 1215, take away that 800 plus years of rights that have been won. For us to be autonomous, to own property, etc., they have by grades and steps, not just recently, but over the last century, done things, and now they've fast-tracked it. How many people feel safer since 9/11? Put your hands up. How many people feel the economy has much more future prospects now that George Bush and I call him Hair Bush is in power, and his Fourth Reich Nazis, and Stephen Harper, his Goebbels. He's a three-time Bilderberger. We have to realize the Bilderberg meeting was in Istanbul, Turkey. The G8 meeting was, of course, in Germany recently. They couldn't even riot near them. They were within 110 kilometers because everything's so controlled. There's an author that is on my show regularly. His name is Jeff Grupp. He's a professor at Northwestern University in Indiana, and he talks about a book called Corporatism. So if you go to my websites, and I have two of them, the first one is called NutriMedical, N-U-T-R-I, Medical, medical.com, NutriMedical. On that side, I deal with basically natural wellness. I'm a trained, board-certified family internal medicine specialist, as well as occupational environmental medicine, military medicine. I've done work in everything from rural practice. In fact, I did a year of internal medicine training here at the Vancouver General in 77, 78. I've trained in trauma, burn units, emergency department, military medicine, environmental toxicology. I've worked taking care of people at the Aiken nuclear reactor site in Georgia, taking care of people moving radioisotopes, bioweapons, nerve gas, and nuclear warheads. So I know a lot of really bad stuff. I was a doctor for CCOM and many other companies in Colorado between 1994 and 2000. Took care of U.S. Space Command employees, Strategic Defense, Star Wars, NORAD, Falcon Air Force Base, directed energy weapons, bioweapons, and wargame simulation Operation Top Off and Dark Winter. Now, that sounds like a long list. You say, how could you be in all those places, Doc? Well, I really believe, just like everyone is here, that we're here because there is a higher purpose. There is a God of the universe. I happen to be a believer, but the fact is, no matter what spiritual viewpoint you come from, you must be driven by emotion. You're not just driven by the intellect. If you just speak to the intellect of other people and say, no, I don't want to believe that's true. It's not their intellect that's telling you no, it's their emotion. Okay? The way to get through to people, I think, is to ask what I call Charlie Sheen questions. Don't let them ask the questions. You ask little tiny questions that before they know it, they've taken the red pill. And you can do it over a period of days, weeks, and months, because most people don't want the red pill. They don't want to know that the world they think is not a Pollyanna world. It's a world of evil overlords, the desire, your dumbing down, the shortening of your life, serious disease, impoverishment, and death. They don't want to hear that negative side. But on the other side, just like the movie Ants, don't pretend that those ants couldn't do something to us. This is the leader of the wasps in the movie Ants. There's a lot more of those little ants than there are us wasps. Well, yay to us Canadian and American ants. Okay? Now, we're here to empower, and I talked a lot about, yesterday I didn't have much time to talk about the solutions, but I do have a detox protocol for protection against nuclear warfare, depleted uranium, and others, and I have many other protocols, and I custom do consults around the world, trying to help people whether they've got cancer, heart disease, or other problems, and they can contact me either on my websites or my phone number right there, 888-212-8871. And the reason why is they don't want you to know there are alternative treatments for cancer. I have on my website experts, for example, Dr. Antonella Carpenter, that talks about treatments for cancer. It's available right now for breast cancer and skin cancer. There's no need for radiation or chemotherapy. They don't want you to know there's major things that can reverse a lot of the causes like diabetic neuropathy, which affects 1 in 20 diabetics. They don't want you to know that there's testing that should be done on all our vets, including our Canadian vets coming back that are exposed to excessive vaccine schedules or depleted uranium. And they want to suppress people like me that speak out. Believe me, I'm a medical legal doctor as well, which is like half an attorney also. So I'm witnessing right now in cases like I have one radiation technologist in Purdue University that was exposed to so much radiation his bones are falling apart, so they're like a 120-year-old person. He's only 42. I have a dentist in Florida who was exposed to mercury, and she lost 2 babies, and her other baby is getting autism at 20 months, and her brain is dying. So I'm working with her attorneys. And the reason why is because they try to silence people like me. They won't. Because I have the love of my family, my fellow man, all of the living things on this planet, and if you're not driven by that drive of emotion, that love, you will be nothing. Like as it says in the Bible, you'll be a sounding gong. You have to understand that this is really serious. We're at whether you come as from the viewpoint of a native shaman, a Christian, an Islamic person, or a Jew, we are literally facing down balkanization at the end of history, or the beginning of a new history, a new phase in humanity that's going to allow us to live in a peaceful, safe world with extended human lifespan. And why would this all happen now? Well, I'm going to try to give you some background to that before I do my talk. How many people know, after this, I'm sure if you're a novice to this, how many people think they know who is doing the New World Order? I mean, that's a really weird term. If somebody told me this in medical school or residency when I went through my psychiatry portions of my residency, I'd say those people have got a fixed paranoid delusion. How many people think they know who's doing the New World Order? Put your hand up. Okay, I want you to shout out a 5-word answer of who's doing it.
Evil bastards.
That's too broad a term. Anyway, yeah, the international banksters are part of it, but the international banksters are just one part of the arm. I'm just going to give you a little background. Science and spirituality are never in conflict. The only difference is ignorance. Okay? 10,000 or a million years from now, do you think the descendants of mankind will be ignorant, or do you think they'll be knowledgeable? If we're still here 1,000 or 10,000 or a million years from now, we'll know so much more that the idea of separate religions, or the idea of a difference between science and religion, will dissolve into non-existence. And that's a very important principle for people to understand. The portion of the globalists, and including the people who want to turn religion into a point of mind control, which is including, by the way, you don't realize that many of the things we don't call religion, like video games, movies, and, quote, our culture. And I remember driving around, I was out in California last month speaking at 3 conferences and 2 documentaries, and the kids wear the same uniforms there, or when I was in Denver just 2 days ago, or in Halifax where I currently live. So there's lots of religions. They have a religion for the people that are in Iran, Afghanistan, okay? But we got to get beyond that. We got to get beyond our political parties. We got to get beyond our religions, beyond our skin color and our background, because they're dividing us because they're getting ready, like on the chopping block, to separate, saute, flambe, and eat us. Geopolitically, financially, and otherwise. They want to collapse the American dollar because you can't destroy wealth, you can just transfer it. So if they collapse the American dollar, they'll be able to buy everything up because the transnational corporatists, and if you look at Jeff Grubb's book, the transnational corporatists are ready to do it. They want to collapse. They want to fail in the 9/11 attack. If they actually thought there was a real enemy there, they would have probably put a 1,000,000-man army, brought in all the advanced weapons, had proper alliances, and they would have won it in 2 weeks because of the power of their military. They wanted to fail. They failed miserably. Just as Homeland Security, they failed. We're failing so miserably. Just give us more money and we'll get smarter and better. How many times do you think that they keep telling us that? Okay? Well, the background is the people that are our current overlords are descendant of ancient bloodlines. And people say, well, what? This sounds weird. It sounds like one of those Discovery Channel things. Well, the ancient bloodlines go back. If anybody, how many people here know what the Knights of Malta are? Okay, what do you think is on that cross? What does that cross signify in the front of their chest? It's not a Christian cross. It's a very ancient symbol. That symbol is older than ancient Sumeria. It goes back tens of thousands of years. It's a galactic cross. It's called the Star of the Crossing. And what that star stands for is that they know that periodically in the galaxy there are cataclysmic events that happen. And they're the keepers of the sacred knowledge that from one civilization crash to another, they keep the civilization or re-energize the power structure. It's a very tiny cabal. There's only about 2,000 or 3,000 literally families that run the world. But they do it through dialectics of control that are very, very advanced. For example, if you go back and look in the Bible or look in other documents throughout the world, you'll find that the same people that created the wars, like Nimrod, actually had his armies go in and grab his own rabble that went and attacked the towns and cities. The Illuminati globalists that set up the Knights Templar in the Middle Ages paid off the robbers to rob to make sure that people would use their banking system money notes so that you would give your money, your gold to the Templar bankers, the banksters in the Middle Ages. And then when you walked on your pilgrimage to the Middle East to go to Jerusalem, you'd be safe because all the robbers would get is a piece of paper. That's what they're doing again. Only this time it's an electronic piece of paper with a chip in you, and everything is electronic divots in their system. So it's the same as the Knights Templar of the ancient times. It's the same people, okay? Now, without putting on labels, and there are various labels that I say on my show, which I may not say here in Canada because you don't have quite as much freedom of speech. But let's put it this way. If you go to my website, you'll see documents like the book Vatican Assassins. You'll see books like the Committee of 300 by Dr. John R. Coleman. You'll see books that explain who these people are, but they have many external masks. Those masks may look Catholic, they may look Jewish, they may look Protestant, they may look atheist or communist. They're all the same. Don't be dismayed by the fact that they have a different kind of mask. because this is all just a game for external consumption. Okay? So the New World Order is culminating now because they know there are things happening to our world. I'm primarily an environmental doctor. I started doing research in marine bacteriology back in the early 70s. Before I went into medicine, I did my honors biochemistry and research, PhD research in marine bacteriology. And I was one of the charter members of Greenpeace, so I am to the bone marrow an environmentalist. Okay, so when I went into medicine and afterwards, I did research on environmental toxicology of toluene diisocyanates and other chemicals. Global warming, and take this note now, this is something you need to know, is not my opinion. It's based on science. It's backed up by Professor Dr. Tim Ball, who lives here, of course, in British Columbia. Global warming is not, that's in capital 20-foot high letters, not caused by carbon dioxide. Now, you'll say, why is he saying this now? I'll tell you why. Because the key thing that they're going to use is the edge of the wedge, in the words of one of the founders of the Confederation, Mr. Joseph P. Howe, who's actually one of the founding fathers from Nova Scotia, where I currently live. It's called the edge of the wedge. The edge of the wedge is carbon dioxide, because if they claim that every person breathing out, we have to charge you $50 per head per year to breathe out. Now, if you breathe in only, you're okay. But at some point, you will pop. Now, you have to realize that they are talking about ruminating animals as the greatest scourge upon the face of the earth. So that means no more cows, no more sheep, no more meat. Now, if you want to know what happened in the Middle Ages, before in the 13th century, the British lords decided to control the population so that they couldn't go to the king's wood and they couldn't grow even certain vegetables without a note of writ from the lord of the shire or the manor. They reduced in height from an average height of 6'1" to 2" in the early Middle Ages, around the 12th century, to a average height of between 5'1" and 5'3", because they were malnourished. Does anybody think that the World Trade Organization and the Codex Alimentarius is good for your health? No. And I'm going to list what they plan to do. They want to give you 7 of 9 banned pesticides. 2 of them are so lethal that in age under 5, 95% of children are dead in 48 hours. There are several others in there that will cause massive disease. They want to irradiate all the food that you have crossing any state border with 100,000 times the lethal dosage to kill viruses and bacteria. They want to put sulfuryl fluoride on your veggies so you don't have to worry about getting yourself toxic fluoride to calcify your nuclei of your brain and your drive centers. You can get it by eating your veggies. And you'd say, why would they do this when the science supports that this is toxic and causes cancer? That's the point. Why would they put aspartame in children's vaccines? Why would they put mercury ethyl salicylate that locks onto the beta subunit neurotubulin so it cuts off your dendrites and causes autism or causes dementia in seniors? And if you have three, how many here people still get flu shots? Put up your hands. One more shot, and we have you ready, pre-signed up for the Alzheimer ward. Because you need to realize their agenda is not in your best interest, and the medical community are an abomination. They don't have the guts to speak out and to say the truth. And that means here in Canada, as well as the States, they need to hang their head low, because when the death camps start, believe me, doctor, we have a special place in the camp for you too. So if you're watching this later, go back and check the science. And if you don't agree with me, call me up personally, privately at 888-212, or call on the radio show. And I will do a mental autopsy on you live on the show. Because, listen, doctor, when you plan on 27 vaccines in children at age birth, when you have 275 vaccines in Operation BioShield, which are, by the way, prepared for Canadians as well as Americans, and I have in my possession right now documents that I received today. This is from Fred Schwartz in Pennsylvania today. That's to the Minute News. Fred Schwartz, right there. Important information about a test in your neighborhood. This is June 24th, 2007. That's today, Sunday. This is from the South Broad Street, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, to residential customers. And by the way, The Homeland Security Department does not allow you to opt out. So they are going to, and it's in the top, of course, it says, important information about a test in your neighborhood this Sunday. And the top paragraph is written in Spanish. La raza. For the race, everything. For everyone else, the shovel. If a bioterrorist attack happens in Pennsylvania, in Philadelphia, large numbers of people may need medicine quickly to prevent sickness. Postal carriers may be able to get emergency medicine to people. Sounds like good to me, as Yoda says. On Sunday, June 24th, 2007, local, state, and national officials, they call them oaf-icials, are conducting an exercise to test the delivery of emergency medicine. Postal carriers are delivering mail, empty boxes that represent emergency medicine, containers to your neighborhood with loving care. I added the loving care. A Philadelphia police officer, armed by the way, will accompany the postal carrier worker as part of the test. Now, do you feel that you're living in 1984? Did you know that George W. Hare Bush, the grandson of the primary funder through Brown Brother Bank of the Nazis? Click your heels together if you can. Get ready to walk the Deutsch step. These guys are saying that you cannot turn them down. So they're trying to see what the public will do. How much will they respond now if we just poke them? You know, it's just a test. It says in the box there's vaccines. You know that after April 1, April Fool's Day, 2005, George W., and by the way, in every province, take notice of this now, there wasn't even public discussion or even news, but do you know that in the province of British Columbia and every province across the country in Canada, they need the premier and a quorum of 3 ministers, and they can order you to take a vaccine at gunpoint and be forced quarantined. That's today. Did you know that in your province of British Columbia? How many people knew that? Did you know that? I researched it. It's more overt in the States. Yeah, we're gonna kill you, and they tell you up front. Here in Canada, they're just going to do it. Okay? Don't think with the squeaky clean image of Canada, and of course the mask has been taken off with Uranium City in Saskatchewan, Lavalin Corporation in Montreal and Calgary that make a lot of the munitions. You know that the major producer for the munitions, one of the major producers that produces the majority of small and large caliber arms, missiles, and weapons, for guns for the Israelis is a Canadian company in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. Did you know that? We need to start taking responsibility. And if there's one thing I tell people to get is get connected to source. Whether it's you feel like I do, I'm connected to the Most High God, but get connected with your shaman leader or whatever. But start getting some spirituality back, and you don't be a empty biological machine that's been drinking so much fluoridated water you have no drive or realize that you're about to be consumed in a holocaust and a maelstrom of evil. So that's reality. And if people want to have a look at it, I'll show the documents to them after. That is pretty hard to believe, but it's right there. So as I say, don't believe me? Now, one of the gentlemen outside just passed me this while I was walking around. Up to the minute news here. And again, every day I review the news on my radio show. I review all the news in the world. And believe me, there is no such thing as a sacred cow. I have a hammer for sacred cows to put them down. And I get them straight between the eyes. You'll see on my show more classified material and more going after the lies and deception on my show than pretty well anywhere else, because if we don't get rid of it, we're dead. We're not just talking about dead emotionally, spiritually, intellectually, financially, in every way we're dead. And I have a family. I'm going to be gone soon. You know, maybe it's 100 years from now, maybe it's 10 minutes from now. But I'll tell you, I'd rather live 10 days with liberty than 1,000 years in the belly of the beast. Canada's defense minister praises Rumsfeld leadership in letters. Anybody heard this? This is today's news. What an abomination, Rumsfeld. We call him Rummy. Mr. Aspartame, he'll fry your brain. While former U.S. Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld was packing his boxes at the Pentagon under a cloud of criticism for his handling of the war in Iraq, a friendly personal letter arrived from Ottawa applauding his leadership. Defense Minister Gordon O'Connor sent a letter to Mr. Rumsfeld 2 days before his planned departure from the last post. December, President George W. Bush had announced a month earlier his long-awaited cabinet minister was being replaced to bring a fresh perspective. Well, I don't know. The stench from the minion of Satan himself, Mr. Rumsfeld, in that position. The Republicans had, and of course they wanted to lose. They wanted to make sure the military campaign was a failure because their idea, they built 13 bases. They built the largest military base outside of the United States in central Iraq, right outside Baghdad. Did you know that? Yeah. 13 bases at billions and billions of dollars, like Carl Sagan. Billions of stars. Republicans had just lost a majority in Congress. So guess what? Mr. O'Connor, we need to give you a packing slip, buddy. This kind of foolishness going on in our country when we are facing the annihilation not only of the national boundaries, we need united independent nations, not no nations and a borderless, feudal, global, technocratic state by the globalist, satanic, Luciferian, bisexual idiots. Yeah. I slid that one in there underneath the CRTC guidelines. Canadian radio and television, bringing you the New World Order. Okay, I'm going to talk about a few other things now. I want to get into some topics here. I was the exit examining doctor for the forensics munitions team that came back from Oklahoma City from the Alfred P. Murrah building in 1995. And I don't know, I think I have a personality defect, which is probably the reason why I'm standing here today. And part of the reason why I'm still alive, because I got such a big damn mouth. Otherwise, if I knew what I knew, and I spoke even a little bit, I'd probably be killed a long time ago. But I guess because I'm an apple tree shaker, their biggest fear is not you people out there. It's the people inside the military, inside the corporations that are their people that might believe me. And they want to know who's going to bolt first. So they're monitoring and tracking information on them. Now, some of them might be you, too. You might be a publisher of articles. You might be a politician. You might be someone of interest. But they want to know who are I call the change shapers, the people of the fulcrum, the people that make up the think tanks, the political parties, the corporate boards, the Borg, I call them corporate Borg, that actually are going to implement policies that are going to change it. The Patriot Act. I said this yesterday, when I want people to understand what Patriot Act is, it has nothing to do with patriotism. Providing advanced technologies to receive and intercept operational terrorism. And I have the Patriot Act, I've read it. I have also sections of other bills, and this is evil. I got the Homeland Security Patriot Act 2 years before 9/11 from my Special Op Delta friends in Norfolk, Virginia. In 1999, we ran special tests on back actually 97 and then later, we did Operation Dark Winter and Operation Top Off in Colorado. I was the point man under Reserve Admiral John Hughes, working with the Center for Disease Control and the FBI. And on March 1, a couple years after this, I met at the Adams Mark Hotel in Denver with lunch with Dr. Jay Reddington, head of infectious disease at the University of Colorado VA Hospital, and the director for bioterrorism for the FBI and for the Center for Disease Control, in a private lunch for a couple hours. And I'm kind of one of the guys, you know. Hey, we're all in this together. So the FBI director leaned forward and said, there will be a Pearl Harbor event in a large northeast U.S. city that will bring a United States martial law with a 95% probability within 24 months and will result in chipping of the entire North American population and then the world. That's what he said, and he repeated it 3 times. Over the next hour and a half, after what's called plausibly deniable questions, he told me in great detail how their plan was to operationally, that there were operations that were going to be live war games, 17 plus live war games, including jets going into skyscrapers in lower Manhattan, nuclear bombs going off, possible bioweapons or chemical release, and that they would precipitate martial law. So when I was driving my kids to their Chatfield charter school in South Denver in Highlands Ranch, Littleton, in 2001, September 11th, I knew they did it. Because when this forensics munition team back in 1995 told me, one of the 5 told me in great detail how he wanted me to look at this rash. He said, Doc, look at my rash. I said, well, that just looks like a rash. He said, no, you don't understand. I said, no. I said, like Becker on TV. Anybody know Becker? He's kind of that hard, crusty doctor a few years ago that was on TV that always had a bit of an edge to him. Well, I'm an old trauma burn emergency doc, so if you aren't telling me straight up, I'm going to not help you. If you do, I'll do anything for you because I care. But I don't like people lying to me. So he was, and this guy's a special ops agent. He's a guy that would go in and put in bombs or take bombs out, works around explosive materials, and this guy was in a cold sweat with pinpoint pupils. I said, what's making this guy so frightened? Doc, you don't understand. I said, tell me what happened. He says, Oklahoma, he blurted out, Oklahoma City, the Murrah building was radioactive. I said, oh my God. I said, I got a nut here. And then he said, no. He said, you don't understand. We removed 2 unexploded 4th generation U.S. Army Corps engineer micronukes, a C4 pineapple, a large C4 bomb, C4 in the pillars, RDX high explosive cord, and thermate. Thermate again. Thermate has been used before. And they were tracking all their debris and were told that if they